The rain had already soaked through his jacket when he stood outside the glass tower, staring up at a building so tall it seemed to disappear into the clouds. His hands were shaking, not just from the cold, but from the quiet fear that followed him everywhere these days, the fear of being invisible, of being one small problem away from losing everything. Inside that building, someone needed a computer fixed. Outside, a single father was fighting to keep his life from breaking down completely. If you believe that kindness can still change lives, that second chances exist even in the hardest moments, then pause for a second. Please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel, because stories like this remind us that humanity still matters. Daniel Reed had not planned for life to turn out this way. 5 years earlier, he had been a systems technician at a mid-sized firm, respected, stable, and certain of his future. Then his wife fell ill. Hospital bills drained their savings. When she passed away, grief swallowed him whole, and the company quietly replaced the man who missed too many days caring for a dying spouse. Suddenly, Daniel was a widower with a 6-year-old daughter, Lily, who believed her father could fix anything except the one thing that mattered most. Every morning, Daniel woke before dawn in their small apartment, making Lily breakfast, tying her shoelaces, and walking her to school before catching whatever repair job he could find. He fixed old laptops, office desktops, printers that everyone else had given up on. He carried his toolkit like a lifeline, hoping each job would be enough to pay rent, utilities, and the growing cost of being both mother and father to a child who still cried quietly at night. The call from the corporate tower came unexpectedly. An executive assistant spoke quickly, her tone sharp with urgency. A critical computer issue had brought the CEO's operations to a standstill. Internal IT had failed. They needed someone immediately. Daniel almost declined when he heard the address. He knew places like that didn't notice people like him. But Lila's school fees were overdue, and the landlord had left another warning note. He said yes. Security escorted him through polished marble floors and silent hallways that smelled of money and power. He kept his head down, aware of his worn shoes and rain-stained jacket. The office he was led into was vast, lined with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. At the center sat a woman in her early 40s, composed and distant, her posture sharp with authority, even as frustration weighed on her face. Emma Caldwell was a name Daniel recognized. She was the CEO of a fast-growing tech company, known for ruthless efficiency and brilliant strategy. Articles praised her as unstoppable, self-made, and emotionally untouchable. Yet as Daniel approached her desk, he noticed something the headlines never mentioned. Her eyes were tired, deeply tired. The computer problem was serious. The system was locked behind layers of encryption, refusing access. Daniel worked silently, fingers moving with careful precision. Minutes turned into an hour. Outside, the rain hammered the windows like a ticking clock. As he dug deeper, he realized the issue wasn't just a crash. The computer had been compromised weeks ago. Someone had planted hidden files records, logs, and fragments of data that told a story no one was meant to see. Daniel hesitated. His job was to fix, not to pry. But the system wouldn't restore without exposing the corrupted core. What he saw made his chest tighten. Among the files were personal documents, not corporate reports or financial forecasts, but medical records, scanned letters, and old emails. There were reminders for therapy appointments, drafts of unsent messages, and a folder labeled with a single word, Ethan. Ethan, he soon realized, was a child who had once been sick. Very sick. Daniel didn't know why this mattered, but he felt the weight of it immediately. The woman behind this empire wasn't just a CEO. She was a mother who had lost something or someone important enough to bury beneath layers of work and control. The computer finally rebooted, clean and functional. The crisis was over. But Daniel didn't leave right away. Something inside him refused to walk out unchanged. Emma noticed his hesitation. For the first time since he entered the room, she really looked at him, not as a technician, but as a person. She saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the quiet strength in his posture, and the grief that mirrored her own. Without dialogue, the moment stretched, heavy with unspoken understanding. She glanced at the restored screen, then at the faint reflection of herself in the glass. Years of running, of building walls, of pretending pain could be outrun, suddenly felt useless. Emma later learned Daniel was a single father, that his daughter waited every afternoon at a neighbor's apartment because he couldn't afford after-school care, that he worked nights repairing devices to keep food on the table. The realization unsettled her. She'd spent years believing success was earned alone, that survival meant hardening your heart. Yet here stood someone who carried grief without losing kindness. What Daniel didn't know was that Ethan had been Emma's son, a boy who loved puzzles and once spilled juice on the very laptop that now sat repaired on her desk. He had died after a long illness, and Emma had buried herself in work, building an empire to avoid facing a life that felt unbearably empty. In the days that followed, Emma couldn't forget the quiet man who fixed more than her computer. She asked for a background check, not out of suspicion, but curiosity. What she found disturbed her. Daniel had been denied stable employment repeatedly despite glowing references. Automated systems flagged gaps in his resume, never accounting for caregiving or loss. Emma saw her own company's software listed among those systems. Something shifted inside her. She called Daniel back, not as a technician, but as a consultant, then again to review internal vulnerabilities. Each meeting revealed his insight, his integrity, and his ability to see problems others ignored. He wasn't just fixing machines. He understood people, patterns, and consequences. At the same time, Daniel's life outside work was unraveling. Lily had begun asking why other parents came to school events when he couldn't, why they couldn't move to a better place. Daniel smiled through the questions, but every night he lay awake counting bills and wondering how long hope could survive on love alone. When Emma visited one of the company's community outreach programs, she saw Lily for the first time. The child clutched a worn backpack, her smile bright but cautious. Something about her reminded Emma of Ethan, the way she focused, the way she trusted without reservation. That night, Emma went home to an empty penthouse and opened the folder she hadn't touched in years. Instead of closing it, she read everything. She cried for the first time since her son's funeral. The next morning, Emma made a decision that would redefine her life and her company. She restructured hiring policies, eliminating automated rejections for caregivers and those with employment gaps due to family responsibilities. She launched a foundation supporting single parents in tech training and flexible work. And she offered Daniel a permanent role, not as charity, but as recognition of talent that had been overlooked. Daniel hesitated at first. Pride and fear tangled in his chest. But when he saw Lily playing quietly in the corner of Emma's office during a later visit, safe and welcomed, something inside him healed. Life didn't transform overnight. There were still long hours, difficult adjustments, and moments when grief resurfaced without warning. But slowly, stability replaced survival. Lily moved into a better school. Daniel stopped counting coins before grocery shopping. For the first time since his wife's passing, he allowed himself to imagine a future beyond mere endurance. Emma changed too. She no longer stayed late every night, no longer mistook exhaustion for purpose. She mentored young employees, listened more, and learned that leadership didn't mean isolation. On the anniversary of Ethan's birthday, she invited Daniel and Lily to the Foundation's first community event, watching Lily laugh. Among other children, Emma felt pain but also peace. What began as a broken computer became a mirror neither of them expected to face. It showed them loss, resilience, and the quiet power of seeing another human being beyond their role. Before this story ends, take a moment and comment below. Tell us what kindness means to you. or share a moment when someone helped you without expecting anything in return. As the years passed, Daniel often looked back on that rainy day outside the glass tower. He realized the world hadn't changed him by lifting him up alone. It changed when two broken lives intersected, when compassion filled the space where judgment once lived. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that small acts can ripple into life-altering change, please like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps stories like this reach others who are still standing in the rain, hoping for a door to open. Because sometimes, fixing a computer isn't about technology at all. Sometimes, it's about restoring faith one life at a time.